And now, recorded in front of absolutely nobody in their subterranean recording studio deep in the bowels of the Cigar Club of Indiana, it's time for the Five Stones Podcast.
Welcome to the Five Stones Podcast, and good morning to everyone out there in Hollywoodland. I am Raymond Modulin. I am but one of the three co-hosts, and joining me today, Mr. Trester. How are you?
I am dandy. How are you this morning?
I'm doing excellent. And the third and last, and certainly not least, the Great Dane.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Colin Hedegaard.
So, as most of you know, we talk a little bit about business. We talk a little bit about real estate, but mainly we also talk about how well we enjoy our cigars. So I am back to the monogamy, or I guess I've never left, the New World Maduro. What do you guys got today?
CAO again.
I have a Buffalo 10 that I'm trying.
What happened to the first? What happened to the first 9?
I don't know. Apparently, they stuck with the 10 and sold it.
It's like COVID-19. Why didn't they warn us around 14 or 15? I mean, we had 18 of them before. All of a sudden, COVID-19 was a problem.
I think that has to do with the year that they found it, not how many of them they found.
I see. I thought it was like the night, like a Heinz 57 or something. So today, guys, I thought maybe what we would talk about may be something interesting. I've talked to a couple guys recently. We were at a chat on the beach in my secluded private island, and we were talking about why businesses fail. So we put together a list of 10 reasons why businesses fail, and certainly I think what would be a good follow-up show to this, hadn't really thought about it, is how to potentially counteract all 10 of these, which I hadn't put thought into yet. We mainly just found ways to kill a business or what would kill a business. Maybe part 2 of this ought to be how do we stop these from happening?
I think that'd be an excellent idea.
Yeah. So I sent you guys the list, and between the three of us, we've altered it and tweaked it to get this current list. So let's just jump right into the number one that I came up with, which was a lack of vision or strategy. You know, flat out, without a clear strategy of what that business is trying to do, I believe they could end up spending money marketing here or marketing there, or not doing the right things. So I think probably while this is number one, I also think it's probably one of the most important.
For sure. I think strategy for hiring and growth is really critical. I mean, for success or the lack of success.
Yeah.
A couple of bad hires can really suck you down the spiral. You know what I mean?
That's actually a good point, Joe. I don't want to cut you off. It's not a single strategy either. Like Colin was saying, you might have a strategy for marketing. You've also got a strategy for growth, which would include hiring. You may have a strategy, for capital expenditures. So it's not just one overall strategy. Because I think that if you looked at it from an overall standpoint, the strategy would be to make more money. So that would be obvious. But you need different strategies for different areas.
And I think one of the, we've said in the past, even when we were doing the radio show and not just the podcast, that we are not people that write down like that physical business plan, but I don't want people to take that to mean that we have no business plan at all. You have to plan. You have to have some idea what's going to work, and you have to strategize in multiple different ways. That way you can pivot to a different direction within that business to keep things going. One of the things I think falls into this category that people run into a lot, especially if they're, running and owning a small business is understanding when you have to put some resources and time in early to gain momentum. I've worked for people in the past where they wanted to wait for the money to come in before they'd be willing to do a hire or do something else for the money to go out. And sometimes you have to put some in to get to that next level. You're not going to get to that next level and then have the money to put back into it. So you've got to have some where it talks about that clear vision. You got to have some vision, and you've got to be willing to I know we do it, 3, 6, 9, 12, 18-month strategy sessions. What do we think we're going to do the next 3 months with the eye on what's going to happen a year and a half down the road as well.
Well, what you said actually brings us to the second thing, which we call is poor financial management. Now, poor financial management could mean just simply mismanaging your funds. But it also could be allocating it to the wrong areas, as you were mentioning. If you need that hire and you need that extra body, you may end up having to allocate a annual income to an employee before they actually come on board. And like you're saying, spend that little money up front. Marketing, poor financial management, paying for the wrong marketing. Or here's another key, paying for not enough marketing.
Yeah.
Those are all good. Those are all very important. I was going to bring another thing up, is that you have to have a strategy for the market changing a little bit. So mortgage and real estate in the last couple of years has really changed. And a lot of our competitors are falling out. They are failing and stopping. And if you didn't have a strategy to, get lean or survive a more slow market, one of the cycles, then you could have a serious problem.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the importance of having the short-term and the long-term goals. You have to have an idea where you're going ultimately, but your short-term goals are going to be almost ever changing with what's going on. You may forecast the next 2 or 3 months, and then tomorrow something changes that 2 or 3 months totally.
Yeah, you might have to have a nuclear option. What happens? I know in our industry, we are regulated by the government, meaning the government controls and says you have to get education for this license. Mm-hmm. My biggest single fear, the nuclear option, would be, what if the government wakes up one day and says, okay, no more required education. If you pass the test, you're good. If you don't, study on your own. We have
probably legislative risk is on this, but that's for sure, legal and legislative risk. I mean, they're throwing a curveball at the real estate industry right now as of July 1st, aren't they? Or soon. Yes. They haven't changed the date. So if you don't figure that out, your business could get killed.
Yeah. The third thing I had on this list was ignoring the customer needs. This is very vague, and I will tell you that. But if you fail to understand what the customer is looking for, and you're not providing the right market fit, you're going to either go out of business, or eventually hopefully you would get smart enough to pivot. And Joe was leading to that point earlier about maybe pivoting. And there's some great stories out there about companies that that are multinational conglomerates that were started as one thing and ended up as another. Pixar was a medical imaging company and made little short videos on how to use their equipment, and that turned into what you now know as Pixar with the movies they make.
Well, and that was one of the things I was going to say. Sometimes within your business model, you are looking at this giant beast of what you want to build, and the reality is one little portion of that is the thing that you can market and make money on.
Yeah.
And not the whole thing. You just got to eyes up and be using that brain.
Number 4 came in. I'm sorry, Colin.
I was going to say the customer also sometimes their needs change over time. If you're in business for 10 or 20 years, and the example that comes to mind is 20 years ago, it was really not a big deal to get the customer on the phone and talk for 20 minutes and take an application. Well, now the current first-time home buyer, as an example, they don't want to talk on the phone. They want you to send them a link and make it super easy and not be. And if you miss the boat on the technology, or you continue to try to call them on the phone, you are just going to struggle until you adapt to what they're looking for right now.
Yeah. Same thing in our field. 20 years ago when I started, it was all live in person and people came in and paid with a check. Now the evolution, the customer wants online. They want to buy online. So we have been through a change to the point where Joe and I have actually started modifying maybe some of our long-range strategy that live class may even just completely go away. Mm-hmm. The live classroom. Number 4 is a good one. I hope I'm not guilty of this. Ineffective leadership. Ineffective leadership. This is the one I think should popped in my head as, I hope I'm not guilty, but every day I feel like I am. Because when things don't go right, it's always the guy at the top that's like, what did I do wrong? Or it should be the guy at the top. What did I do wrong?
Well, let me submit to you that I don't think you're an ineffective leader if you are feeling that way. If you are sitting there thinking that you're doing everything right while the world is burning down around you, you're probably an ineffective leader. If you are constantly trying to evolve, like, well, today didn't go the way that I wanted, what do I need to change? That's probably the sign of an effective leader, because you recognize that there's things.
So that is one that could kill that. I mean, if a leader makes a poor decision and bankrupts the company, makes an illegal decision and puts the company in ethical dangers, things like that. Number 5, we've touched on briefly, but I had it as a separate comment, is the failure to adapt to the market changes. Like I mentioned, 20 years ago, the market in the real estate world, education was live. Now it's not. And we've incurred a lot of cost to go to that online through our LMS and all of our marketing. That has greatly changed in how I did it when I started versus what we do today.
It might be changing right now again. I think there's a need to look at different ways to make things easy for the customer, even easier. I'll tell you a funny story. We had somebody that just literally, we were texting a phone number for her to get in touch with one of my LOs. And that extra step of having to reach out to my LO turned out to be the difference. I texted her a link to the application and she clicked it and applied. They did not want to go that extra 3 clicks of the button to include one more step. So it had to be super easy. I had another thought on 4. Can we bounce back for just a quick moment?
Certainly.
On 4, it doesn't necessarily kill the business, but you and I have both had people that have risen to a successful level and then left to start their own thing. And that doesn't really kill the business, but when your top performers leave, it is a black eye that has some recovery time.
Yeah.
And that's a good leadership, I think, to create an employee that's skilled enough to go start their own, or, feels confident to do that, but it can leave a black eye on the remaining business.
To create your own competition.
But that's kind of bad. But you, we have that in the mortgage business. You have that in real estate all the time as well.
Oh, yeah. There are many, many brokerages out there that I can point to and go, that guy used to be my agent. And I don't fault them, because there are very entrepreneurial people that come into my brokerage and literally say, I eventually will leave. And that kind of going in.
Well, generally, there's 2 people that leave: people that want to build their own and are going to leave, and people that think they're going to walk in on day one and know everything. I want to know it all right now, and you can't. And they generally end up leaving for that reason. So
that's another thing we have to adapt to, which is back to 5, is you just have to adapt and know that will, in this industry, we both know that will happen from time to time. So you're just prepared for it and roll with it and find the next killer.
Number 6 on my list, once again, we have kind of rolled these in together, is poor marketing or poor marketing strategies. Are you marketing to the right people? And Joe and I have recently bumped into this a lot, because there's also, are you marketing the right message? You could be getting to the right customer theoretically, but not portraying the right message to them, and it's not resonating. So they ignore it. So that's part of the strategy that I think that we are having issues with, is we're getting to the customer. We're not convincing them in the right manner. So, making sure that you market to the right person with the right message at the right time.
Well, the good news about that is, in today's world, we have a lot of data, and I know you like to study that data. Both of you are looking at that a lot, because that's the secret sauce of online marketing, is you get in front of them and you get a message that inspires some activity. So now that we have the data, you can do different ads, and
right.
Hey, that one was 0 for 1,900. That one got 10 out of 14.
Right.
1,400, whatever. You can figure that out, but you got to have a strategy for testing, figuring out, and then what to do once you know which way to roll.
Well, the difficulty with data is it's only as good as what you put into it. So if you're putting the wrong information in, you're getting the wrong data back out. So I think even especially in marketing, when you're trying to grow the business, as frustrating as it is, and Raymond and I have both lived this frustration for a while now, especially the last 2 or 3 weeks, reaching out and getting contacts with people that know marketing. And this kind of goes back to that leadership thing. You have to know where your strengths and where your weaknesses are, and be willing to go out and find people that can fill those weaknesses. With marketing, especially it's finding the people that can either do it for us or teach us in a way that we can be more effective. And as frustrating as that process is, you may go through 50, 60, 70 conversations with people until you find that one thing that clicks in and works. And you got to be willing to continue to do that no matter what. So just throwing that out there. Data is important, but if you're feeding the wrong thing in, you're getting the wrong response back out.
Right. So number 7 on my list, and Colin just brought this up a minute ago, is keeping an eye on your competition. You've always got to see or maintain what the other person's doing, not so that you can copy it or beat it. But one of the things I've noticed in competition is it also gives you an idea of where the market's going. If you start to see a lot of people switching to a new technology, that gives you an idea, hey, there may be something going on with the entire market. So watching your competition, yes, is really good, but it could also give you other insights to your business as to where the market is or what's happening with the market.
You set your business up as kind of an alternative to the big box. I'm talking about the real estate brokerage. You saw all the big boxes getting a big percentage, and they have the big parade of things. And you kind of said, you know what? I don't really want to compete with that. I want to attract the people that don't like that or have their path.
But noticing that now, and I would like to pat myself on the back, I think I was one of the first, but now there are a lot of brokerages that are going to this kind of model. And that's what I'm saying. If you look around and you see 6 or 7 brokerages now adopting a new business model, that might be an insight to you to say, hey, the market's changing as well. So
maybe time to innovate and find what's next if everyone is now emulating what you've
Yeah.
been doing for 10 or 15 years. So
Stay ahead of
I
the
mean,
curve.
the other thing is it gives you an opportunity to see what doesn't work, because sometimes your competition isn't doing something right, and you can see that as well.
Yeah, that's another good point. Number 8 on my list was inadequate employee management, not utilizing your employees or hiring the wrong employee. And like Joe said, you may go through 60 interviews to find that one person. And a lot of times, what's the old adage? Hire slow, fire quickly. You know, making sure you get the right person. If you get the wrong person, A, they're going to do a bad job. B, they're going to set you back. And 3, they could actually be detrimental to your overall business model completely.
yeah, all your employees represent your brand when they're out there, whether they're doing good for it or whether
Right.
they're punching you in the gut.
Yep.
Well, and I
Correct.
think the other tough part is making sure you don't just hire a yes man. I mean, everyone has an ego if they want to hire that employee that backs up everything you think, say, or do. And sometimes you need to have someone that's willing to back you up, but might have a little bit of a diverging viewpoint to help spur some growth. And there again, I mean, that just with us interviewing marketing firms and marketing people, I mean, it sometimes is tough to hear some of their opinions, because you think to yourself, well, holy crap, this is my baby. We've done this, we've done that. I don't want to listen to someone pick it apart. But sometimes you have to listen to someone pick it apart so you can evolve.
Yeah. Got to be able to withstand the thick skin and the criticism. Joe is specifically talking about a marketing firm that we spoke with yesterday that ultimately turns out not to be a good fit for us, but did bring to light some of our inadequacies. And we have already put plans in motion to maybe listen to what they were saying, even though they were not going to come on board ultimately and work with us.
And it's aggravating, but it isn't necessarily wrong.
Number 9 is one that is curious to me because I had put neglecting quality. You know, putting out a product or a service that was both substandard is very detrimental to your brand and to your business. So, but the only hard part about that is you've got to be able to know it's substandard. And what I mean by that is, are you collecting, like Joe mentioned earlier, the right data? Are you talking to your customers and say, you know, what went right, what went wrong? More important than what went wrong. It can lead you down a path of improvement, but if you don't want to listen and continue to put out poor quality, eventually it will be gone.
Well, and we all know an individual that has a retail establishment that seems to make plenty of money regardless of whether they are neglecting their quality, so to speak. And we know that, you know, with a couple of tweaks, they would be making, 10 times what they're making right now. And they know it, and it's almost willful.
Yeah.
That they aren't changing it as well.
It took me a minute, but I now know who you're speaking about. And you are absolutely right. That's an anomaly animal because that particular person happens to be in a phase of his life where he just doesn't give a damn anymore, And maybe that's a potential, if you're happy at making 200 and don't want to make 400 or 2 million, you can ignore some of this stuff. Unfortunately, that's not me.
There's two things at play in that situation, though. There's a product, which is quality, and then there's an experience, which is a separate product.
The right? Customer experience in that particular situation is not good.
It could be stopping growth, but the product itself is actually fine. But
I contend he is stopping growth. He is stopping growth.
You can have a quality product and crappy service, and the inverse is also true. You could be great at service, but be selling just absolute crap to people and kill your business too.
Yeah. The last one that I hit upon was one that comes from personal experience, is overexpansion or expanding quickly. And let me clarify that by saying, because you need a strong infrastructure to be able to handle more business. You know, we all hear the stories of those guys that start a website and they turn it on, and all of a sudden they've got 3 million orders and they can't produce, and the business ends up closing because they were just too good, or they overexpanded their reach. We recently acquired, well, it's now been over a year ago, a school that we were not ready to expand. And Joe and I had to scramble real quickly for a lot of hours to instill a new, infrastructure to be able to handle out-of-state employees and things like that. So that is my list of the 10 things. If anybody out there would like this list, put something in the comments and we will get you a copy. Now understand, this is my list. This is one I came up with. Could be right, could be wrong. There could be 20 more things. You could have a different viewpoint. These gentlemen right here are very successful at their businesses. They may have a different list. I think I've tried to cover all the areas in this. You guys got any other ideas?
No, this was an interesting topic. It was cool. I think there's a few more. Maybe we'll add to it in a future podcast.
Yeah. I would definitely like to go back and maybe at some point revisit this and talk about how you can, or what you can do to try and avoid these.
Yeah,
and I think these lead me to my two favorite words in business, and it's going to be shocking: evolution and education. You have to be willing to learn more, and you have to be willing to evolve.
Yeah.
If you're willing to do those two things, you can be reasonably successful.
There's an old saying, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward, which actually is exactly this guy we're talking about.
Yep.
Not moving forward, hasn't adopted new technology, has not adopted anything new in the last decade, and I feel he is moving backward. But he still seems to be profitable somehow.
Well, you know,
that's okay.
Sometimes things exist and survive regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, there's always the 1% that's out there where it just happens.
Despite his attempt to try and kill the business, it doesn't seem to be doing.
He's the Deadpool of business owners. It doesn't matter what he does.
Unkillable.
Yeah. We'd like to thank you guys, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell. And if you've got a question, put them in the comments. If you'd like to come on and talk to us, we are always looking for that fourth seat. Put a comment down below and our producer will get a hold of you. Gentlemen, any last thoughts before we get out of here?
No, get out there and do some business.
Help us out, share this, get it to friends. We really want to get more subscribers and get more things out there. And we really want you guys to give us some comments that we can discuss on here. We want to answer questions that you guys actually have. We're not just saying it because everyone says it on a video. We are genuine. So
we really mean it.
Yeah. We're real humans.
If you've got a business question, put it back down in here. If you'd like to come on and talk about it, we're more than happy with that. Guys, I want to thank you. I think I'm going to head out and finish my cigar. So have a good afternoon.
Rumph.